Yes, this is ska, original and indigenous. The music of guitar, saxophone, trumpet, bass, and drums.
One step beyond.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Lotto Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
I'm your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where we choose one year at random and select one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk-adjacent album from that year to discuss. And we are in the middle of SKAUGUST, literally in the middle. Last week, we started off with our two-tone discussion on the Selectors, Too Much Pressure. And today, we're going to do a third wave record. But before we get into that, if you head over to our Patreon, that's patreon.com/punklautopod. For $1, you get access to all of our weekly bonus audio. And last week, we did a chart dive on the year 1995, and we discussed the non-punk albums of 95, because we've done a punk album chart before, and we've done a modern rock chart for 1995 before. So we discussed the more general non-punk music from that year. How would you describe that episode?
It was a little bit silly. It is very hard to go into a normal episode immediately after recording a Patreon like that, because that's a kind of a level of silliness and energy that is only for the patrons.
Yeah, it's a little more loosey-goosey over there. Yeah, we definitely go off in way more tangents than normal on that episode. Yeah. Mainly because what we're given to talk about as far as what's on the charts. 1995's non-punk output, not great. We'll leave it at that. And then you can get access to any other audio that's produced. I think I finally figured out how to do a new release audio. So I think after being on night shifts for a couple months now and trying to figure out when I'm going to fit this in and how to do it, I think I've come up with a schedule or a timeline to do it. So I'm going to try and do one of those soon, see how it works. It might be less albums per week and maybe not on Fridays. It'll be more like Monday or Tuesday, but give myself a little time to listen to stuff. So be on the lookout for that. There's Moon Pies for Misfits in there. That's my Try and Drinks video series that I stole the name from Dylan.
Yeah, I wasn't using it. It's fine.
Well, you had it for an Instagram handle.
Yeah, I have not logged back into that account in a long time. I had to get a new phone this year, so I lost. They're not automatically, whenever you reinstall an app and then you're just I the only other account that I've added back to my Instagram is the band. There's a couple of other Instagram accounts that I have. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't have a reason to post something.
Yeah, I think I've burned off a lot of the desire to just post as much as I used to back in the Tumblr days, whenever I had 5 Tumblrs. Posting different types of content is very weird.
Yeah. I still have a strong urge to post, but it's mostly just tweets still.
Yeah.
That's enough of an outlet.
Though really, I think the Discord has been probably one of my favorite outlets recently. If you head over to the Patreon, you get access to our Discord. And if you join, I'll send you an invite. There's a way to link your Patreon directly to your Discord, but it's very convoluted, and Patreon, for as big as they are, their apps suck. And their website sucks. It's very badly designed. They're always trying to change things too, and they mess things up. It used to be easier to tag your Discord to your Patreon, and now it's you can only do it on a computer, I feel like. But so if you join, I'll send you an invite link, and then you can use that to join there. And if you join at the $10 tier, it's a one-time $10 donation. You get to choose what album we devote an entire episode on. And I was messaged earlier this week by another patron to be I've got an idea for one. So we've got a couple maybe heading our way, which would be cool. I'm really looking forward to seeing what these folks choose for us to talk about. One was described as punishing. So I
Oh, good. We haven't had one of those in a while.
I don't think a patron has actually chosen anything punishing for us. I think we've just punished each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, all that, patreon.com/punkgelato-pod. And speaking of the Patreon, if you were a patron this month, you could have voted in the poll to help determine what album we talk about today. So for Third Wave, we knew we had a lot of options, and someone recommended is like, hey, you should do a poll for Third Wave. And I was like, that sounds like a good idea. So what Dylan and I did is we each chose 2 albums of Third Wave ska bands and put them in a poll. And the one we're talking about today is the winner, obviously, and it won by like a lot. I could even pull up the percentage too real quick. It was close. Oh, it's closer now than it was. But at 63%, the Bruce Lee Band's self-titled album won.
That's a pretty hefty margin still.
In second place, it was MU330's Chumps on Parade with 38%. And tied for last place, Five Iron Frenzy's Our Newest Album Ever and RX Bandit's Progress, both 0%. Clearly, no one wanted to hear us talk about those albums.
I know our listeners. I know our patrons and their interest in ska better than you.
Yeah, so before we get to the actual Bruce Lee Band record, I thought we would at least talk about the 3 other options that we selected and kind of like talk about why we chose them and our just general thoughts on those albums. So let's do a sandwich. I'll do my first one, and then you'll do your not winner, and then I'll do my other one. So let's start with this one. I chose RX Bandit's Progress.
Who would have thought it? Whoever thought that would be this way? Love is hard, but it's always getting better. To look out for today. Some say, no one of me.
Do we call them RX Bandits or do we call them Prescription Bandits?
I don't know. That is kind of their deal.
They used to be called that at one point, but I don't know. I went with that record because they're a band that I've always been like, people love this band, or they think, and they're like really critically well regarded for the most part. I remember seeing their albums during like 90s, 2000s, like looking at ska music and just being like, what's that band's deal? I know they like turned into like a prog rock band, and they have a couple records in the 90s that were like straightforward ska albums. Like the earlier stuff was a little more straightforward. And I wanted to choose one that was like more a mixture of like what they are now and what they started off as. Something that felt very Third Wave. Because the later stuff, I don't think it feels necessarily as Third Wave. And the ska elements in that actually probably feel more like reggae elements, weirdly, in the later stuff. This was purely I don't know what the deal with that band is. I don't think I'd ever listened to a single album by them. I was just like, sure, let's try this. I've never listened to them. Let's see what's going on. They're well regarded. Let's do this record. So I chose the first one that like starts the really proggy stuff, which is Progress. And I think it's kind of the more iconic album cover too. I've definitely seen that album cover way more than any of their others. I actually listened to it in preparation. I listened to all of these choices in preparation for this week's episode, just so I could talk about them in general. But it's definitely my least favorite out of all of them, and I'm kind of glad it didn't win. But maybe there's also a lot to talk about there too. I don't know. I think we would have found plenty to talk about, mainly about like how weird the record is. But if it comes to like repeat listens, it's the one I want to listen to again the least. Have you ever heard that record?
I may have heard stuff from it. I remember hearing a little bit of their music, and I don't really know what they sound like. I can't really properly explain to you what they sound like. I know they're weird, but
yeah. Well, you also nominated Chumps on Parade by MU330. And my response to that was, that's not even one that Dan sings the whole thing on.
No, it's not. It is the one that Dan sings more on. I'm not sure what the actual breakdown of lead vocals are on that one. But Chumps on Parade. So, while I was thinking of what to choose for this poll, I guess I was thinking of like, what are the ska bands that I really like that maybe we haven't done on the show before? And I think we've talked about MU330 a little bit in, probably like Patreons, but we've definitely never dedicated an entire episode to them. And MU330 is one of my favorite third wave ska bands, like of all time. Like, it's definitely one of my top. I don't know. I don't know where I'd rank them. Top 5 for sure. I want to say maybe even top 3. I have to think about that. And Chumps on Parade is so like Crab Rangoon is like the best one, I guess, by MU330 fans' definitions. I probably would say it is their best one, but for some reason, Chumps on Parade is the one that I'm most familiar with. I guess I had it on my computer, and I guess I didn't have Crab Rangoon on my computer. I just remember hearing songs from this record all the time when I would just like shuffle my iTunes and irritate my college roommates, and just the like absolute nonsense of like power violence into ska, into the Avett Brothers, into just whatever random stuff I had on my iTunes that I would listen to from my like laptop speakers or like the little computer speakers. I did upgrade to those. I did get the little, you remember those computer speakers that you plug into the headphone jacks?
Yeah, the little baby monitors.
Yeah, the marginally better than laptop speakers.
Yeah.
Which I want to say is how I listened. Man, I probably played my records through those too for most of my time in college. So Chumps on Parade is the one that is the MU330 record that I'm most familiar with. It's the one I've probably listened to the songs the most. Wide Awake, State of Mind, Fat and Married, Since the Short Long's Gone, Johnny Jump Jokes, Fried Chicken. There's some dumb stuff on here. Hot Dogs. It's fun. It's just a wild, fun record, which I think is just how you would describe MU330 in general. And I'm even kind of an apologist for Press, which is not well regarded. I think that's a good record too. But Chumps, even though it's not Dan lead vocals the whole time, it is where MU330 really figured out who they were. And I think it is just really consistent quality from beginning to end.
So I revisited Chumps just to get a refresher on it, and I was like, I know every single one of these songs on this record. Like, I listened to this record a lot too. The breakdown is a little bit more even. It is probably closer to 50-50, maybe not exactly, maybe like a 60-40, but Dan sings way more than he does on Press. Press, he just does Who's Your Love, and that's it.
He has a couple songs.
I don't think it's as many as you remember. I think it's mostly the other guy. Yeah, but Chumps on Parade, I was like, okay, this record actually is really fun and really good. It's long. It's 50 minutes long.
Yeah.
19 songs, but it kind of flies by. I think the songs are short. I think that's why it goes by pretty quickly, and they're pretty fun. I still definitely go with like Crab Rangoon, Ultra Panic, and the self-titled over Chumps and Press. I just don't really particularly like the other guy's voice that much. I kind of am blanking on his name, but I don't know. He just does like a tries too hard singing thing. Like he tries to be too good, like tries to be a really good singer, but he's not. I don't know. But yeah, revisiting it, I was like, okay, this record actually is really, really good. So it's more fun and more evenly down the middle vocal line. And then I chose our newest album ever by Five Iron Frenzy.
Do you remember where we all came from? Do you remember what it's all about? When you made a point to be objective before you started writing hell for the sellout.
Because they were like my favorite band for a really long time, and they just recently announced that they were repressing their entire discography, including albums that had never been pressed on vinyl before. And there's like a compilation going to be in there too. I'm pretty stoked about. That's like best like B-side rarity type things, except like it's not just like Jesus of Nazareth on vinyl again. They actually like pick and chose like the best songs and then other songs that were on other B-side collections. But I hadn't listened to our newest album ever in a while, and it was always the one that I was like, it's my favorite. It's their best record, and I think it is probably still their like best third wave ska record. But I think I've grown to be more of a The End Is Here, The End Is Near, or Electric Boogaloo fan. I think I like those more, or even like Quantity Is Job 1 minus the pants opera. But
Right.
But our newest album ever is really fun, and it has a lot of really, really just great songs. Like it has their all-time hit, their show closer, Every New Day, which gets me every time I listen to it. Especially like the outro to that song. I think because it reminds me of like the final concert performance where it was like they were breaking up, and then so then it always hits me. But this record also has Handbook for the Sellout, which I think is one of their best songs like ever, and some funny tracks like Superpowers and Sucker Punch, Blue Comb, Oh Canada. The funny songs I've kind of burned myself out on, and I've over time. You ever do that thing where you like love a band so much that like the deep cuts become your favorite songs?
Yeah.
So then it becomes like Banner Year and Second Season are like my actual favorite songs off this record now. So yeah, but it's just a really fun record. It's really good. It's definitely their best album, and it has a funny name. It's their newest album ever, and it was only their second of like, how many did they do? They did like 6 in the original run, or 5, 6 if you count the live record, 7 if you count the EP. But yeah,
8 if you count cheeses.
Yeah, 8 if you count cheeses. Yeah.
Before someone, I'm just gonna go ahead and put the correction here. Before someone yells at us for our MU330 facts not being correct, the other guy is actually 2 guys. So it's John Cavanaugh on Press, and it is Jason Nelson on Chumps on Parade. So it's 2 different other guys who sang. John played trumpet as well, but then Jason Nelson, who's on Chumps, doesn't do anything else. He was just vocals. So
weird.
Yeah, I guess Dan was like, I can't be the lead singer and the guitarist.
Maybe it was just like he hadn't quite figured out how to play and sing that much. Maybe, I don't know.
Because he was the only guitar player. So
yeah, which is interesting because they sound very full. Like it doesn't feel like a one guitar band.
Overdubs.
I mean,
but
yes, I know overdubs, but just I guess the type of chords he's playing too and everything. But yeah, so the actual winner, and we'll get into that. We don't have to really talk about 1995 because we did a big chart dive on it, and I didn't see a lot of other ska. So
yeah, surprisingly.
Maybe we'll pull it up here in a minute just to get a reference. But let's talk about the Bruce Lee Band and their self-titled album, The Bruce Lee Band.
No time to trade quips with Lois about being tongue-tied together. This is a job for Superman. Well, the people doesn't really matter. We're our people, no one looking anymore, not just a loser. We're our people, whoa. We're our people, whoa. We're our people. Superman, can you save me from my own insecurity? Superman, can you save me from my own insecurity? Superman, can you save me from my own insecurity? Superman, can you save me from my own insecurity?
So it's hard to find like when did this band form? It's because it's basically Mike Park solo with whoever he gets to play with him. But we'll just say formed in 1995, released December 1995 on Dill Records, and this is the band's debut full length. The person on the album is Mike Park, aka Bruce Lee, on vocals, sax, and acoustic guitar. Roger Manganiello, aka Roger Lee, on bass and vocals. Vinnie Fiorello, aka Vinnie Lee, on drums. Krista Makes, aka Chris Lee, on guitar and vocals. They all went with the Bruce Lee gimmick. Recorded and produced in Gainesville, Florida, with Bob McPeak, Darren Newfer, and the rest of the band. Which already I'm like, Mike Park in Gainesville, Florida? That's weird. You're in the wrong side of the country, Mike. For those unfamiliar, Roger, Vinny, Chris, and Darren are or were, I don't think they're all still a part of it, but members of Less Than Jake. So the backing band of the Bruce Lee Band is Less Than Jake. And
yeah,
a trend that continues on later records is different backing bands.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about later.
Which makes the Gainesville thing make sense. I'm sure he was just like out there, and
yeah,
they made the record there, because it would make more sense for him to go to them.
Yeah, right, because everyone else is there already. And yeah, the Bruce Lee Band formed as a side project for Mike Park while his time in Skankin' Pickle was winding down. He did leave Skankin' Pickle in 1996. I think he was just burnt out. They were touring a lot, and he was just like tired, very tired. And if you know anything about Mike, he doesn't really like touring that much. And he announced his departure from Skankin' Pickle in the liner notes of the Green album, so the album came out in 96. So it was pretty much obvious that like, okay, this record came out in 95. He's already done with Skankin' Pickle, really. And he was starting his record label at this time. Asian Man had not quite been formed yet. They formed in 1996, so the following year.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, side project essentially that became the only project for a minute, and then it goes on and does some other things. But so I haven't got to ask this in a minute. What made you choose this album to talk about? Out of all of the Mike Park bands, there's so many.
Yeah, I think because it is just Mike Park, maybe is kind of like the appeal of it. I was thinking like, oh, a Mike Park band would make sense, but I was just thinking like, I don't love any Skankin' Pickle records that much,
Which is blasphemy.
and I like Skankin'. I like Skankin' Pickle, but they're not my favorite thing he's ever done.
Not even Sing Along? That's like the one.
I didn't say I didn't like it.
I think you did. Didn't you just say that?
I said I don't love it.
Oh, okay.
There's a difference.
What if we adopted like a new combative attitude on the show? Just like brothers who don't get along, which is the exact opposite of what we've ever been.
Yeah, I don't know. This one, I guess I was thinking, it was kind of thinking along the lines of like the new Bruce Lee band records have all been really good. Like some of the best stuff he's ever done. But I was thinking like, well, that's also kind of like, I mean, it's not new tone because because of who he is. And like, it's, he comes from the third wave and like, that's his legacy. So, but I figured if I was interested in those records to possibly talk about, but I figured why not just go listen to the actual third wave one, the one from the 90s, and talk about that one. And because it's like, I guess it's the band that is interesting because it was like a one-off originally, and then now it's like it's almost his primary.
Yeah.
It really is his only music output currently.
I get he's done more of them recently than he's done other stuff.
Yeah.
That's tough. I don't know how active Ogi Kubo Station is.
I think Ogi Kubo's done. I think I've seen him post something recently about them being like pretty much done.
Yeah, I mean, because Mara I think lives in like Ohio, and I think she's in Ohio. She's in the Midwest somewhere. Mike's still in Silicon Valley.
It's of the bands that he's associated with, the one that you expect new material from is probably the Bruce Lee band. So I thought that was kind of interesting to be like, it was like a one-off solo project kind of thing, but it's also like his current main project. So I figured it'd be interesting. And it's Mike Park, so it's all in play. I mean, honestly, like everything he's done it's fair game in the conversation. But
trying to remember when I would have heard this first. I definitely knew Skankin' Pickle first. Like that was the one that I was introduced to first by Mike Park. And I definitely knew about the Bruce Lee band and the Chinkies, which it is so funny how casually people just say the name of that band. It is very funny that it's a racial slur, but it's like, it's the name of the band and everyone says it. They always say it. No one ever doesn't say it. It's funny.
It's definitely, it's a name that you have to remember is a racial slur. Like you have to like check yourself mentally when you say the name or when you think about the name, because you're like, oh, I should not say the name of this band most places.
I was doing research on the album at work, and like I was like, I should not have the Chinkies album name and like cover like on my screen for very long. I should pull this down real quick. It's one of those things where it's also like an old timey racist slur that you're just like, what? Huh? Like it's not used really that much, but they named themselves that. And
yeah.
They let everybody say their name. So
yeah, right. I mean, and they named themselves that as a point of being like, this is racist. Like anti-Asian racism does exist.
Yeah. And Mike Park's Korean too, which is also like the other thing. It's like, is the rest of the no, I don't remember. So if the rest of the band is also Korean as well, because there's an EP that came out like a year or two ago. There's a new Chinkies EP, and it's called like KA Music, which is Korean American music. But I don't know if it's just because it was, I think it's Steve Choi, I think is who his band member is in the Chinkies, and it was a very like just him and Mike and like some extra people. So I don't know if the Chinkies as a whole were a Korean band. So even then, there's like another layer of like, because I think there was like a story that Mike Park shared about like being called a racial slur for Asian like Chinese people or something, and he's like, it's wrong race, like wrong country.
I don't think that they are all the band members' names are like Osaki, Thin, Choi, Higuchi.
Yeah.
So I think they are they were all Asian of different backgrounds. Which I think would be funnier if which also plays into the name of being like, people just like kind of like blindly they pick a slur and it's just like, yeah, you're that. And it's like, no, I'm not that at all.
Yeah. Addressing Asian American racism specifically, like that's been like a really big role in most of Mike Park's output, which he helped form the Ska Against Racism tour and all that stuff. So yeah, Plea for Peace and all that kind of stuff. Cool stuff. Always very on the that as like the message forefront. So I was trying to remember the first time I heard the Bruce Lee band though, and I think it was on the Mail Order is Fun compilation. It's like one of the Asian Man Records comps, and I think it's the first volume because I think Jerry is Strong is on there, and then I think there's also a Chinky song on there too. Because it was just like, these are the albums I have for sale, at this time. So he put all stuff on there. And so Bruce Lee was his nickname in Skankin' Pickle. He was Mike Bruce Lee Park, which also feels like it's probably another, like, he was called that by white people. And then he was like, took it back type thing scenario.
Yeah.
Because there's like multiple clips on this record of like Asian people being called Bruce Lee and the samples on this record. And what's kind of funny about that is, so the band is called the Bruce Lee Band. They go and get the album produced at a record plant that is owned by Robert Lee, Bruce Lee's brother. And he contacted Mike Park directly. I guess there's probably like a PO box or like something in there. And he basically was like, hey, so the Bruce Lee Foundation owns all name and likeness of Bruce Lee. So you might want to change it. I think he was trying to be like, hey, you should probably change this somewhat. It wasn't like him being like, you need to change this now. Like I think he was just like, I know what I don't think he's involved with it. Or maybe he's the decisions that group made, and he was just kind of like giving him a friendly warning to be like, hey, you might, he's like, I get it. It's fine. It's fun. But let's maybe change it before you get sued. But
they're very protective of the name.
So they changed for future pressings. They changed it to the B Lee Band, which I think is the version that you see on like the album art on a lot of places online for it. Though weirdly, like they just call it the Bruce Lee Band now. So I don't know if he just like got permission or something later to use it, but it's weird. I guess he was more scared of it and then was like, well, nothing happened, and then just kept going. Who knows? But yeah, I thought that was really funny that the plant he was owned by Robert Lee, which is hilarious. It's just like, wow, coincidence.
Jerry, come to my house. Break it and meet my family. Jerry, are you hungry? My mom will make you a small piece together. We'll eat it and celebrate with a small dance. So hurry, time's wasting, and don't forget to dream of that. Let's go very quickly to the store. I'll forget me back food to move the van. And I've got jumping to the wall. Not too bad, but it's my dad. Can you fix it, please? Say yes. Can't believe it, it's bad news. Jerry, come to my house. Play games and meet my family. Jerry, are you hungry? My mom will make you a small.
So to me, this record, like I knew this album, I'd heard it before. I don't think it was one I came to that much though. It's not one I visited a ton. So I was definitely very excited to like dive into it really. I've heard it before multiple times, but yeah. I think I've heard the other stuff more frequently. Do you remember the first time you heard them?
Not really. I knew from comps, like of the band. And then knew the later stuff pretty well. Like I was definitely paying attention, listening to that stuff when it came out. Like Everything Will Be All Right. My friend came out in 2014. So I definitely listened to that then, or like early in 2015, something like that. So I've definitely paid attention to like the newer stuff that they put out as it was coming out, and more than likely would have gone back and listened to this record at some point, most likely when I was working at the bank and I had 8 hours a day to listen to things, where I would have just been like, all right, I'll listen to the Seaweed discography, the Superchunk discography, Mike Park's discography. I bet I could find out. when I listen to it.
Oh, that's right. Your Last FM is like immaculate. Like you have maintained it consistently.
There's pockets where the stuff's missing. Let's see here. All time. Where does that spike? Yeah, I may be missing some stuff. I only have a couple of songs from this one that I listened to in 2015. So either it just didn't all scrabble, or yeah. I've definitely heard this record though. There's enough stuff on here that it's pretty familiar from beginning to end for me. So in listening to this for this episode.
Yeah, so revisiting, what did you think of it?
I think it's good. I think it's I don't think that Mike's voice is at his strongest here, and it could be some fatigue from Skankin' Pickle, but I also just think his voice, I mean, probably just as he matured, like his voice really locks in on the Chinkies, because even like the Skankin' Pickle stuff, I don't think that his lead vocals are his best. I mean, he's fine, adequate, but I think he's like, as a singer, he really comes into his own probably after this record. But I mean, you know, he's got a great sense of melody from the beginning. So it's like, it's not, his performance isn't the best that it could be, but the songs are good, are really good. They're really strong melodies, and that it's just like, he doesn't have to sing it like super well. But I do think his voice sounds better later.
Yeah, because he's just on this record, he's just, like I said, vocals, sax, and the acoustic guitar on this album. So even as a guitar player, he's not even doing that much.
Yeah.
Like there's a couple acoustic tracks on here. Yeah, I think his solo music is probably where he became like his strongest as a singer, because it was just him and the guitar on a lot of that stuff. Like it was pretty much acoustic. Those records were like all acoustic. And actually, I remembered that was my original introduction to Mike Park, was his appearance on the Hopelessly Devoted to You compilation. It was his acoustic version of Asian Prodigy, which I think is originally a Skankin' Pickle song, maybe. I think. It's an older song that he redid solo. And that was the first thing I ever heard by him. I remember that, doing research. And yeah, I think that's where his voice like smooths out. Because he's definitely a little like, is it pitchy? Is that what you describe it? Or he just kind of like cracks a lot when he sings?
He cracks a lot on this record. And I mean, it's, yeah, you could say pitchy. He's not like wildly off the notes or anything like that. But there, you know, yeah, there's stuff where he's maybe a little flat, or he kind of wobbles on a run or something like that. But it's not anything that's like, you know, it's not like super bad singing or anything like that. It's just natural, like, you know, imperfections that where they're just like, yeah, it's fine. I'm not going to re-record that. It's fine.
Yeah. So what do you think of Less Than Jake as the band, basically?
It's probably the weakest part of the record.
Yeah, that was my thinking too. This isn't even the best that Less Than Jake would get to either. Like,
yeah,
and that was one thing I wanted to look up. They had released Pezcore in 1995. That was the album that they put out that year. And I don't think that's even considered like one of their like best records. Let's see. Yeah, because that's their first record. So they were like still new as a band.
That makes sense. Less Than Jake, I've never gotten into Less Than Jake. I think, you know, we've probably joked about Less Than Jake in like a ew, Less Than Jake way, you know, like, but it's fine. It's fine that there's someone else for someone else. Like I was thinking of this recently, or yesterday actually. I was just like trying to devise a rating system in my head of like, not for me, and I don't get why anyone would like it. Not for me, but I get why people like it. This is for me, but I get why other people don't like it. This is for me, but I don't get why other people don't like it more. Or I don't get how someone could not like this. Which is such a subjective rating system.
Yeah, it means nothing to anyone reading that. They would have to like know you very well to be able to be like, well, what does a not for me, but I have other people might like it rating mean from this guy?
Yeah, it's which I mean, admittedly, subjective rating systems aren't a bad idea to be upfront with them and be like, this is my completely, because like there's something like undefined and like expects people to have like an objective standard to be able to agree with when you just have like a number system or a star system or something like that. That if you changed that to just being like subjective qualities, then you like force people to have to engage with what you're saying. So it's not I don't think it's the worst system.
Oh yeah, I mean, my 5-star is definitely not the same as a lot of other people's 5-star. I also will just throw those things out there and give them away wildly. You know, like I'm definitely like, man, this rocks. 5 stars. What is it? Sure.
But Less Than Jake is a pretty quintessential, like, not for me, but I get why they're for someone else band. I've never really connected with them. I've never really honestly tried, like, to any substantial degree. Like, I've never really put on a Less Than Jake album.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe that's not true. I may have tried at least one at one point, but up to that point and ever since then, every time I've ever heard them, I'm like, yeah, I'm not motivated enough to go listen to them. So them being really early on and them being the backing band on this record, I think it is the weakest aspect of it. I think that it's lacking the focus of having like a real band behind it. And it probably could have turned out this way with any number of bands. I don't really know the full story of how this record was written and recorded. Like, it very easily could have been like he sent them demo tapes and then they learned the songs really fast and then he showed up and they recorded them, and you know, it's almost a demo of an album. I doubt they had like extensive practices. I don't think he went and lived in Gainesville for a year.
No. I also was like, I don't know if anyone else has experienced this. We've mentioned this before on the show, but the internet has become almost impossible to research anything on anymore, especially with like music, because it just turns into websites trying to sell you the albums. Like, that's all the results you get on stuff. And a lot of that information too, I think, was stored in the like the blogosphere, the Angel Fire, GeoCities, like old websites that don't exist anymore realm.
Yeah.
So now it's like, it's just lost. And so your best bet is maybe to find like scans of print media. Like, that's your best bet to find anything anymore. Like, I'm sure there's like a ton of zines that interviewed, you know, Mike around this time, you know.
Well, maybe not even a ton. There might be one.
True. Yeah, I didn't really see much of a story. I didn't research it from the Less Than Jake approach, but everything I looked up just talked about how it was like articles written around the 2014 comeback, and it's like, Less Than Jake formed in Bruce Lee Band formed in 1995, and the first record, and then went dormant. And it was just like, I want to know the story of this record. Like, I understand, like, he was still technically in Skankin' Pickle. This is Less Than Jake is the band and produced the record. Went to Gainesville to do it. You know, like, tell me the story. Maybe there's a podcast that tells the story, but you have to listen to an entire podcast to find it, in, you know, or multiple podcasts. So, yeah, unfortunately, I think the internet has become way worse when it comes to researching things like this, and it sucks. I hate it.
It has. Every website is like a computer-built SEO machine that copies the same information from every other website. It's horrible to try and find anything unless you know specifically where it's talked about and you put in that website's name. It's impossible to find any information.
Yeah.
There's an In Defense of Ska.
That probably would have been
interview that probably talks about. Yeah. So if you're more interested in the story, you might go listen to that.
I also kind of refuse to listen to podcasts to prepare for podcasts.
Yeah. I'm not going to steal someone else's work.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing. I'm just like, I don't want to step on somebody else's toes, or like take something in and just be like, I was listening to this one podcast and they said this story. I don't know. So
yeah. And the fact of the matter is, we're not interviewing Mike Park.
Yeah.
To talk about the album. So we're talking about the album as we perceive it in whatever context we can put it in. What's your context for it today?
Context today is I liked the album. I think it's pretty good, but it's very obvious like Mike's first attempt at something outside of Skankin' Pickle, because in Skankin' Pickle he was like one of 3 vocalists and songwriters in that band, and like a Skankin' Pickle record would maybe have like 3 songs that were like wholly him, and then he would like do some extra vocals on other tracks. So he's never carried a record before from front to back, and so this is his first real attempt at that. And even then he still doesn't carry the whole record from front to back, because he still lets Vinny or Chris, whichever one of the Less Than Jake guys, who's like the main lead singer, he lets them sing a couple songs on here too. Didn't like that. What the fuck? This is your record, Mike. Why are you letting other people sing it? It's kind of how I felt when Jeff Rosenstock was singing like a solo on the most recent Bruce Lee band. I was like, no, this is Mike Park's band. You have your own Jeff Rosenstock.
He gets to do his records.
So I definitely think it's got its problems as far as just like it's rough around the edges in a way. That being said, there's a lot of really good songs on here. Like a lot of really, really good songs on here. And it kind of like covers a little bit of everything really that Mike kind of is known for. I ultimately do think it's the weakest Bruce Lee band album, including the 2005 Beautiful World EP, which that one was backed by the RX Bandits. They're the backing band on that record. I listened to that too. It's much better. They're a much better backing band, but they're also probably like better musicians. I don't feel like you can write like prog rock and not be like good at your instrument.
Well, and they're so experienced at that point, and Less Than Jake here is not.
It's true. This is a very young Less Than Jake, whereas that would have been like middle period RX Bandits in 2005, about to put out their like considered their best record, I think, their '05 album. And then like even like the reunion, the new Bruce Lee band stuff, it's like a super group of very experienced musicians. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, the rough around the edges, I guess, comes from everybody involved with the record. So that's fair, I guess. Let's talk about the actual kind of, record itself. I'd say there's like 4 different types of song on here. There's your Mike Park ska song. It's similar to what he would have written in Skankin' Pickle and what he goes on to write in the Chinkies later. Just a good third wave ska song. There's the couple acoustic songs that Mike does solo. There's the sung in Korean songs. There's 2 of those on here. And then there's the songs that the Less Than Jake guys sing, which there's like 2 of those, I think.
Which ones are those? Do you remember?
Let's see. Standing Up for Justice. That's the Less Than Jake guy song. And then maybe it's just, at the very end, they did this very annoying secret track thing. Did you listen to all the secret tracks? There's 2 secret tracks on here.
I only heard one.
There's 2. And the last one is the Less Than Jake guys doing the Gilligan's Island theme song, but it's a punk song. It's not the melody of the Gilligan's Island theme. The other is the A Girl Named Spike acoustic version.
Yeah.
That's a Skankin' Pickle song, because it's right after the Don't Sit Next to Me Just Because I'm Asian acoustic song too. So yeah, the Gilligan Island, it's because I listened to it and I was like, it's not the Gilligan's Island's theme, but it's the lyrics to the Gilligan's Island's theme, which is like a spoken song. It's not even like a real song. Yeah, so like, there's 2 by the Less Than Jake guys. So it's not a lot, but it's like third wave songs, and then there's a couple like actual just like punk rock songs, some acoustic songs, and then like a couple short joke songs too. So what's the standout? What are the standouts on the album to you?
It starts really strong. Superman and Gerry is Strong, both together are really good songs. The Korean songs really stand out. Kamsamida and Hongulmamotaya.
Yeah. Which I tried to find a translation for. Wikipedia says it's translated to "I do not speak Korean."
Mm-hmm. Which is really funny because he has the songs that he sings in Korean, and he's like, I speak like elementary level Korean.
Yeah, he says I speak like a 6-year-old.
Yeah,
quality Korean. Because Jeff Rosenstock wanted him to write him a song in Korean to sing, and that's when he was like, I don't actually speak Korean. Like his Korean is so limited. That song is literally like 2 lines repeated over and over again.
Yeah.
I do think Kamsamida is a little bit more lyrics, but
yeah,
it which means thank you.
Yeah,
that's what that one means. Yeah, to me, like the best songs on here are the 2 Korean songs. Gerry is Strong. Gerry is Strong is probably like one of the best songs on the record.
Proud is a really, really good song.
Yeah, Proud is really good.
Brother Brother's really good too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the weaker songs are the ones that are just like more straightforward punk. Like they're not necessarily like that ska, like Calling for Me. List is okay, but it's like really short, and it's a joke song about like the name being on the list for a show.
Yeah.
Is my name on the list.
He does the spelling LIST.
Yeah. Going Insane's okay. It's like about like a dog saying my name in a park or something like that. And then song number 3, part 2 is another really like short, fast song. They're good, but I didn't like Loved by Ann B. Davis that much. It's another like punkier song too. To me, like the strengths on this record are the fully ska songs and the acoustic stuff. The acoustic stuff is, so which songs are those? We have Mr. Hanalei, which is about an episode of the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, he just describes the plot of the episode.
Yeah, and I told Dylan that we should watch the episode, do it for Masterpunk Theater. Because the episode has Vincent Price in it too.
Yeah, that is so weird. It's just the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, that is a show I cannot stomach, really. But I think I would do one. My guess is Mr. Hanalei is like the only Asian character who's ever been on the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
But isn't the open
and is
sample?
Like from the lyrics, it sounds like he's like, yeah, probably represented in a pretty stereotypical.
Yeah, because it's about like they find like a tiki statue and bad things are happening to them, so they go to Mr. Hanalei to tell them what to do, and he tells them to go to this cave and put it back and something like that. And Vincent Price is in the cave, I guess. How that goes. Yeah, the mystical Asian instead of trope in this one, which I love all the samples on this because I don't know what any of them are from. Like there's multiple references to Bruce Lee, like Asian people being called Bruce Lee or knowing kung fu, and I guess they're just like racist episodes of TV shows or something that Mike watched as a kid or something. Yeah, that's an acoustic song, and I guess the other acoustics are Don't Sit Next to Me Just Because I'm an Asian, which is, about like Asian people stereotypically being considered smart and students copying off of his test, though it does have a funny line how he filled it out, his Scantron out wrong, and the guy copied him, and then he erased the whole thing, and the guy like failed, and it was his last time to take the test. And then like the hidden track version of A Girl Named Spike acoustic version, which that is more of what he does as a solo musician later. He does like a couple solo records where it's just him playing and it's like acoustic guitar. We haven't really mentioned the They Might Be Giants cover. She's an Angel.
Yeah.
Cover. Not as like it's not as like standout of a They Might Be Giants songs though. I don't know. That's off the first record, I think.
It's one I know pretty well. It's an okay cover. I don't think it feels a little bit like it was kind of like, oh, this would be easy to do because we know it. It feels like filler, and it's appropriately sequenced towards the very end of the record. It's like, I don't think it's treated as like anything other than what it is, but It's okay. I think it's carried mostly on the strength that it's just a good song. But I'm never gonna pick this version over the They Might Be Giants version.
No.
It doesn't do anything to really distinguish itself.
Yeah, because They Might Be Giants are definitely known for like the kind of meticulous like arrangements on all of their music. Like they incorporate a ton of instruments and different stuff, and so like it has to be like put together in a way that like is clear and you hear everything and you and this is just to me just says the Less Than Jake guys aren't strong enough musicians at this point to pull this off. They could probably pull it off better now, but it's just like it's a punk band doing a cover. Like it's how it feels. It's like very 90s, put the cover song towards the end of the album, second to last song usually. Or it's like, what is it? No, you put it third to last because you do cover, your last full band song, and then you end with an acoustic song. Like that was like the formula for like a lot of bands in the 90s and 2000s. So I tried to find like reviews on this album, and there's just like not a ton really out there. I did find an All Music review that's pretty negative. The Bruce Lee Band seems to exist as a self-indulgent outlet for Asian Man Records owner Mike Park's misguided creative impulses. Between forced political commentaries like Stand Up for Justice, poorly barked vocals, and somewhat less than competent rhythm section, this is a record that should probably have stayed in Park's basement where it belongs. I think it's a needlessly harsh review. The forced political commentaries like Stand Up for Justice, which isn't that the one that's the other guy? It's the Less Than Jake guy wrote that. Like, why are you coming for Mike for that song? Maybe he wrote the lyrics, but
which is a song about standing up for my rights when I got a ticket in my car, stating I was doing something that I had not. I guess it's about going to court. It's not really that much of a political statement, actually, at all. It's actually just about getting a ticket and going and contesting it in court.
Weird.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know about the forced political statements of any of the songs dealing with racism.
Yeah.
From the perspective of someone who has experienced racism. Pretty bad review.
Self-indulgent outlet.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. So, like, maybe that's the only point you could say is that it's like it was self-indulgent to release it as something that was not fully fleshed out.
But it didn't even come out on his label. Yeah. It came out on Dill Records. That's not his label. And the reviewer is like seems to think of him as a record store owner or a record label owner. Self-indulgent outlet for Asian Man Records owner Mike Park.
Yeah.
Misguided creative impulses. Yeah, it's not his record label. This is before Asian Man Records even exists. He had spent a decade or whatever in Skankin' Pickle. Like, shut up. You want to talk about bad faith reviews? That's a bad faith review. People love to like argue like a negative review is a bad faith review. It's like not all negative reviews are bad faith reviews. If you don't know anything about anything, then maybe it's a little bit more bad faith. And then I was like, I can't find any other reviews except I found this review written by Justin H on Amazon in 2003. Did I write this and did not know it? 5 out of 5 stars. This CD rocks. If you like punk ska, you will love this CD. It has many great ska songs, and then it has a couple hilarious songs sung by Mike Park to his acoustic guitar. If you like Less Than Jake or Skankin' Pickle, you will love this CD because the group is composed of the band from Less Than Jake and the singer from Skankin' Pickle. The CD dominates, and you should buy it. If you like Less Than Jake and Skankin' Pickle, great, because this album is Less Than Jake and Skankin' Pickle. Like that's. That's how I would have written in 2003 though. So maybe I did write this in a coma and yeah, not a lot written about this album.
No, I mean, and understandably, because it's not like the Bruce Lee Band didn't do anything after this.
Exactly. It would be exactly 10 years before they would release the follow-up EP, A Beautiful World, with a completely different backing band, the RX Bandits. And then again, until 2014, when the band was revived on a more permanent basis with Jeff Rosenstock, Dan Podhast of MB330, Kevin Higuchi, and Matt Porter, and AJ Marquez of Slow Gherkin. And there's like a member of Chato Ghetto in the band too. They have since released 2 full-length albums, multiple EPs, and to me, it's the best version of the Bruce Lee Band. Mike's a better songwriter. it's like mainly like ska project. It also incorporates lots more dub in the newer stuff too, like in traditional like or like two-tone type ska stuff.
Yeah. Well, which is a good segue at least to talk about something that about this record is that it does sit pretty well within the third wave sound of ska, which we didn't actually really talk about third wave ska broadly, so we could probably just tack that on here at the end.
Yeah.
This record does kind of do the third wave thing of really splitting between more typical ska rhythms and then more just like punk songs. And in this case, I don't think the horns are even on any of the like straightforward punk songs. And now that I'm thinking about it,
yeah,
those are almost just straight punk songs. So it's not even doing the punk with horns, which is kind of what I would think of Less Than Jake as.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's totally an accurate impression of them.
Yeah, I guess we could do this. You know, I was talking about like third wave ska albums or ska albums that came out in 1995, just to kind of get an idea of what they're up against. So Tragic Kingdom, no doubt, that's kind of like the shining star of third wave ska really on this list. You got Pezcore by Less Than Jake. You've got Everything Sucks by Real Big Fish, which I think is their first album too. You've got a ska P record, Ferme by the Voodoo Glow Skulls, Dancehall Crashers, Lockjaw.
Now that's one I would want to listen to from this year.
Yeah. There's a High Standard. That's still more skate punk. There's a lot of like skate punk albums on here with ska songs. That's like a thing. They do like one ska song on an album.
Yeah, there's a Millen Collin record.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, keep going. There's a Blue Meanies record, Kiss Your Ass Goodbye, Pie Tasters, Ululu. That one could be a little bit more like traditional. The New York Ska Jazz Ensemble.
Yeah.
Planet Smashers, self-titled, Bucko 9, Barfly. Oh, Slapsticks Look It came out that year. That'd be a fun one. It's not like the big ones, though. Like, none of these are like the big third wave ska records, really.
Yeah.
There's a selector record, Hairspray.
Yeah. So 95, I would have expected to be a little denser with ska. And I mean, I guess there is the big stuff. There's the Real Big Fish. There is Voodoo Glow Skulls. There is Less Than Jake. You know, it's maybe not that record by those bands, but they are important records by those bands. I mean, that's probably the Voodoo Glow Skulls record.
Yeah, that one might be, yeah. Well, 1 year later, 1996, we've got Real Big Fish's Turn the Radio Off, Less Than Jake's Losing Streak, Suicide Machines, Destruction by Definition, Goldfinger's Self-Titled, The Aquabats, Return of the Aquabats, Upbeats and Beatdowns by Five Iron Frenzy. So 96 is kind of like the year of like it explodes. You got a Fishbone, Against All Authority, the Green Album, the Toasters, Sort of Jelly Beans, the OC Supertones, Adventures of the OC Supertones, Chumps on Parade. So I guess Press came out in 94. I would be now let me look at 94 on the other end.
Yeah, 94 is like Question the Answers, Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. There's a Mephistopheles record, Sing Along with Skankin' Pickle. There's a Toasters record, another Bucko 9 record that year, a Pie Tasters.
So that really 94 looks stronger than 95 was.
Yeah, but so third wave ska, which I'm looking at Rate Your Music, and it's interesting how they have ska punk, ska core, and third wave ska.
They're all the same thing.
All listed as separate genres.
Yeah. I guess you could call something ska punk and it not be from the third wave. Like, I feel like the third wave, I guess, is like more of a specific era. So that you would probably call a newer record a ska punk record. Like, it's a mixture of punk and ska. It's a ska punk record. It's not a third wave record because it didn't come out in the third wave, and it's not by a third wave band or members of a third wave band. I think you can extend like a third wave band releasing a record in 2023, still call that a third wave ska record because they were there.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't call any of like the new bands, like a Kill Lincoln or anybody like that, third wave, because they're fourth wave. Fourth wave just implies it's a wave of. There's a lot more ska bands now than there were between the third and the fourth wave.
Yeah. But yeah, to think of third wave more, yeah, third wave is to me the broad catch-all of really what gets called ska in the 90s, and some of it's rock with horns and some of it's like actually ska and like has that through line from two-tone. And one of the things I really do love about Mike Park in his bands and his ska bands, like, is that consistency from two-tone to what he's doing now is really strong. And to me, his bands, and there's a few other kind of like third wave ska bands and records, are in essence, they are two-tone. Like it's two-tone if you take away like the new wave thing.
Yeah.
But it's like the same level of like ska that preceded two-tone. Like that's traditional ska rhythm, and that's that sensibility and how that it plays out in the band arrangement. And like I think he's always been like most influenced by that stuff. I mean, and he's the right, I guess he's the right age, and he's like, that first, he really is part of that, the origins of third wave ska. But
yeah, I'd say like the three most important third wave ska bands to the formation of third wave ska, I guess, are Skankin' Pickle, the Boss Tones, and Fishbone, because they're the three who aren't doing two-tone specifically.
Well, they're like American versions of two-tone.
True. Yeah, that is a big difference. They are all American. That is a stronger difference.
Like it really is like the third wave really is punks getting two-tone records. Like,
yeah,
American punks getting two-tone records and being like, oh, I want to play ska, and then branching out from there and listening to more Jamaican ska and
skacore, as I've seen that used as a genre, and I guess there is like a minor distinction between skacore and just ska punk, because it's like, well, the Boss Tones invented that. I think they were the ones who used that term, and I think it was really referring to, we're hardcore guys doing ska music now. Like that's kind of like how that started. Boston hardcore kids doing ska music. But I guess there is still like if you're going with a harder edge, maybe like you could still call stuff skacore. Would you call like like Bomb the Music Industry like skacore?
Yeah, it verges on it.
Because it's like, when it's chaos. It's really why I don't like a lot of the Jeff Rosenstock ska bands. I like the Arrogant Sons of Bitches. I like that one because it was a little more third wave. But yeah, the Bomb the Music Industry and solo Jeff Rosenstock ska stuff is just like, it's so chaotic that I just don't get it. But
I don't know, the ska punk ska core line, it's one that blurs very easily. I think ska core definitely does make sense when you like apply it to like Choking Victim and Leftover Crack and that kind of like
even Op Ivy
crust ska.
Yeah, Against Authority. Yeah, is
It's
Op Ivy a ska band?
It's definitely my least, ska core. So like the least appealing version of ska to me.
Yeah. And a lot of the third wave is just like, it's just punk bands with horns. Like a lot of it was. The ones I think that kind of stand out a little better are the ones who attempt, the upstrokes and like more traditional rhythms.
Yeah. It's definitely the stuff that you're like, they really absorbed, Specials records.
Yeah.
Instead of being like I like how they do a ska song on this NoFX record.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Rancid would get that too. Like, this Out on the Wolves has some ska on it. I was like, yeah, it's not a ska album though. It's like they have a couple upstrokes.
It's a Clash album.
Yeah, and we're not calling Clash records ska records. They just throw in some upstrokes occasionally. But yeah, I think that covers it. I don't really have much else in my notes. Mike Park's seriously one of my absolute favorite musicians all time. Love. If Mike Park's in it, I like it. Like, I don't think he's released anything that I'm just like outright dislike. Like, there's stuff I like better than others, but nothing he's ever released I'm just like, this is awful. Why is this out? Like, he has good sensibilities in any project he's involved with. So definitely like, and then Asian Man Records is definitely, I think, probably the ideal independent DIY record label. Like, he kind of like set the template for how so many labels run today. Just does it all out of the basement, out of his parents' garage.
Yeah.
He did a TikTok this week of like his mom was like packing orders.
Yeah.
And she was telling him that it's not good for your business for people to see your mother packing your orders for you or something. But yeah, it's a good record. New meter that we've started throwing. Is it 1,001 album to hear before you die?
No.
Yeah, I don't think it is either.
Not that one.
I would pick a different one by him. Later one probably. Maybe Community Outreach. Yeah. You got a star rating for it?
Solid 4.25.
I'm going to go just under that, and I'll do a 3.75. I didn't love everything on here. I definitely think it might be one of the weakest records in his discography. I don't know. I haven't heard all the solo acoustic records, so maybe one of those. But at least out of the ska stuff, it might be my least favorite. I don't know. I'd have to dig through some more and reevaluate, but otherwise, I still think it's solid. Good record. Good attempt. Good first attempt at a solo record. So, all right. Well, that'll do it for this week. Next week, we'll continue SKAUGUST with a new tone record that I'll be selecting. I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do yet. I have to look through. We've covered Catbite in the past, so it probably won't be one of their albums, but I'll look and see who else has put some stuff out in the last decade, I guess, that I want to check out. So follow us online at all social media. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter, x.com. We're on Threads. We're on Blue Sky now. Well, I am. If anybody else is, please let me know. It's a ghost town out there. Only it's slightly less active than Threads, so that shows you how much it is there. If I get an invite, I'll be sending it to Dylan, so then we can at least be like, hey, back and forth on a platform that no one else can see.
Yeah. We need another place to talk at each other.
Yeah. But that'll do it. At Punklottapod and all that stuff. So punklottapod, gmail.com, 202-688-PUNK is our voicemail line. And we will see you next week.
To order Punk, call the number on your screen. Rush delivery is available. Remember, this special offer is not sold in stores.